Name times for you. I'm starting to feel a little, I don't know. It's like this part of me that wants the game to just end. I feel like the game's overstayed its welcome. Like there's been a lot of overly wordy descriptions and stuff, and a story that's basically non-existent and going nowhere. I feel sympathy for the characters. There was this magical hope that the grandmother would get to see her husband again at the shrine, and it didn't happen. And it's kind of tragic, and I feel kind of sad for her. But like I feel like the game has been slow. It's been really slow, and not a lot has happened at all. Um, so it's yeah, it's wearing a bit thin. So it's like there's a part of me that wants to believe that there's going to be a lot more gameplay, but a part of me that is horrified at the thought that there might be a lot more gameplay, because it's a lot. You're throwing a lot at me here with all these like long descriptions. Because it'll be like you're about to do something that's like a little bit interesting, and the character will be like, "I sat there, and I nibbled on my orange, tasting all of its corpusculence." Across the noonday sun, as the sun blazed in the sky which holds the heavens and the angels and all the fought the war against hell, man's original sin, and be like, oh my God, stop! You're getting sidetracked because you're just trying to take your grandma to a damn shrine. Like, don't get so distracted, please. Anyway, let's keep going. It's just because he's thought, and it might be interesting if there's some gameplay to go along with these crazy thoughts of the character or something. But it's just me reading and reading, and or pictures or something. But it's like you're killing me, and you're getting sidetracked over nothing because it has nothing to do with the story. Anyway, let's keep going. I never thought I'd grow to care about my strange, eclectic grandmother quite this much. Though it sounds awful, I don't think the me of a few years ago would have particularly cared if my grandmother stumbled and broke a bone, or caught a malignant cough, or passed away quietly in the middle of the night. I would have been sad, I suppose, but it would have been an abstract kind of sadness that comes when you feel obliged to be upset by something. I would have gone to her funeral, and I would have pretended to grieve, but her death wouldn't really have touched me. It wouldn't have hurt me. That's because I didn't know her well enough. To me, my grandparents, though integral members of my family, weren't particularly important. They were burdens more than anything else, because I hated visiting them when I was a kid. I thought their old wooden house was painfully boring. It's just like, he already said this in the beginning. I mean, I guess I can see it now, like repeating it for emphasis now that he feels differently about it, but it's just a lot. All I could do was lie on the tatami mats, playing on my handheld or reading comics. And when my handheld ran out of batteries, you have to figure out how to repeat a little more quickly than that, because like repeat in summarize what you said earlier. Don't just repeat every little detail. Jesus Christ. Tatami mats, playing on my handheld, reading comics. And when my handheld ran out of batteries, I feel like it's actually repeating it in more detail than in the beginning, when he first describes how he feels about his grandmother and his memories of being a child and visiting. When I finished my comics, I was lost in the doldrums of despair. I never got to know them as people. I never really tried. I thought my grandparents were too old, and I was too much of a brat. I didn't think we had anything in common. My grandmother didn't even know what my favorite cartoon was. How could she ever understand my feelings? If she had died, I wouldn't have cared. My grandfather did die last year. It hardly registered. But it's different now. Now that I've really spoken to my grandmother, not as a curious relic from the past that might be found on the shelf of a Tamayura, but as a real human being. I don't want her to die. I think we should go, you. Whatever magic worked on me, it clearly hasn't worked on this shrine. Are you sure? You were so looking forward to it. Oh, they haven't given up yet, so maybe it's not... I mean, they have given up, but we're still at the shrine, is what I meant. I thought they were just going to go home. And I was mistaken. But you bought that beautiful kimono. It was just a fancy, really. I'd wanted to wear something like this since I was a girl. Well, she offers me a smile, though it seems slightly muted and doesn't quite reach her eyes. At least I was able to make one of my wishes come true. But Grandpa, I don't think Yukinari's coming back. He's passed on now. And how do you know that? I can feel it in my bones. It's just an old woman saying, a phrase that doesn't make one lick of sense. That I can't stop myself from smiling despite the gloomy atmosphere. A drop of snow, soft and ephemeral, lands on the tip of my nose. I brush it away with the back of my hand. Don't you want to wait a little longer? If there's magic in this world that can make you young again, I'm sure there's magic that can bring Grandpa back. Maybe there is, but I don't think there's anything to gain by standing here waiting. Why not? Because, to be quite honest to you, my grandmother hangs her head, her long eyelashes black as coal, starting to tremble. But being here is too depressing. And that's when I see it. The tears. Trophy earned, frozen tears. They beat in my grandmother's eyes like pearls, damp and salty. You don't know that they're salty. Calm down. I guess they're salty, but because they're tears. Oh man, it's making me cry a little bit. Damn it. For a few moments, they hover on her eyelashes, held in place through sheer force of will, before a sob wrenches itself from my grandmother's throat, and they begin to trickle down her cheeks. I stare, my eyes wide, mouth agape. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. How can I console her? I've never seen my grandmother cry before. I never imagined it of her. As far as I can remember, she's always been so bright and cheerful, forever telling silly jokes, smiling to herself, and laughing. She seemed so perpetually trapped inside a dream. I assumed she didn't even realize how old she was getting. But maybe that was all a front. A mask. Of course she never told me about her doubts of fear or fears. Why would she? I was just a stupid kid who wouldn't have listened to her. And even if I had, I wouldn't have understood her feelings. She had no reason to confide in me because she had grandfather to support her. She didn't need anybody else. But he's gone now. He's gone, and though my grandmother got herself dressed up and came to the small shrine where she first met him, he isn't coming back. No magic in the world can revive the dead. At least, that's what I thought, but... Uh-oh. Omega. A soft voice calls out, carried by the breeze. The wind rustles through the dead branches of the trees and snakes down the back of my coat. My skin tingles. Oh shit! This is exciting. The snow continues to spiral lazily through the dark, dark sky. Beetlejuice has never looked more cold or more bright. Omega, please, don't cry. My grandmother gasps, blinking in surprise. The small motion dispels yet more tears, making them leak from the corners of her eyes. She lifts her head, letting her hands drop from her mouth. Yukinari? Umeko. Yukinari! Umeko. It really is you. And then, as though he was standing there all along, there he is! He's a ghost! Ah! A ghostly impression of my grandfather begins to materialize before the humble shrine. He's faintly transparent, shifting and shimmering like a reflection on the surface of the water, and not quite there. Not quite alive, but it's still unquestionably him. He doesn't look like the grandfather I knew. Gone are the bristles about his chin, the stained and dirty hakama, and his slightly discolored teeth, yellowed from years of smoking cigarettes. He looks a lot younger. He's tall and slender, stately like a piece of bamboo, with dark hair and dark eyes. If I had to hazard a guess, I'd say this man is in his early 20s. Wasn't that the age he met my grandmother? She was 16, he was 24, and they fell in love at first sight. My grandmother blinks, her eyes red and puffy from tears. Her hands are clasped together at her chest, over her heart, as though checking to see whether it's still beating. I don't blame her. My grandfather is dead, after all. He's supposed to be dead, anyway, but he's still standing here. It's the only natural conclusion, really. If you can see dead people, you must be dead yourself. There's no way this can be real, and yet, I can feel my blood coursing through my body, I'm more acutely aware of it than ever before, now that something so fantastically has occurred to make me doubt my own existence. I'm alive, but the ghostly impression of my grandfather still hasn't faded. That must mean it really is real. This is really happening. Oh, Yukinari, is it really you? I can't believe this is happening. I kind of thought that there'd be something different, but nope. They decided to just give us the basic story that we might expect, which is fine. I'm happy for that. I just hope this isn't the ending. I feel like we deserve a little more, but I don't know what else they would do. I feel like something with the sister, right? But they'll probably wrap that up quickly. I think we're getting to the end, which maybe is for the best, because I am a little bit exhausted by this game. Anyway, let's get through this damn shrine scene and I'll take a break. My grandfather smiles, that teasing smile of his I know so well, though he's decades younger than the old man I used to know. Who else would it be, Umeko? His voice is firmer now, though his body is still trembling, like the sail of a ship in the middle of a storm. Don't tell me you can't remember your own husband. Yukinari, oh, I missed you so much. And with that she runs forward. Her dark hair flutters behind her like a veil. The sleeves of her kimono whip behind her as she runs. But she doesn't stop. She opens her arms wide and throws herself at my grandfather in a passionate, almost desperate embrace. Is he gonna be physical? I half expect her to fall straight through him. His existence is so very tenuous, hovering on the brink between one world and the next, that it seems inconceivable that he should be able to catch her, flesh and blood body with those phantom arms. But I needn't have worried. Her head falls against his chest. It doesn't go through. 2 hearts beating. Oh, I'm starting to cry. Trophy earned. The trophy was 2 hearts beating. Like something from a magician's stage act. Instead, my grandfather's body remains solid and immovable, still faintly transparent, but rooted firmly in this world. For now, at least. Is that thanks to the deities enshrined here? I wonder. It might be my imagination, but those stone foxes that guard the shrine, the ones without a paw and ear, and his companion with the missing head, look a touch more stately than they did before. It's almost like they know something. But that's ridiculous, isn't it? They're only stone. What does stone know? My grandfather takes a breath. This is actually, I'm getting like chills down my spine. This is pretty good, I have to admit. Man, I'm feeling very, very emotional right now. His shoes sinking into the snow as he tries to support my grandmother's weight. A sly smile on his face. He says, his eyes flashing, "Goodness, Umeko, have you put on weight since I last saw you? Oh my gosh. What do you mean? You're heavy. You have to remember, I have a bad back." Oh, you old fool, Yukinari. You're not meant to say things like that to a woman. Ah, yes, my mistake. But I've never been very good at saying the things I'm supposed to say. I prefer to say the things I like to say. I know. It's a wonder my mother ever approved of you. It must be my ready wit and good looks. Ha, you wish. Come on, there's no point trying to play hard to get. We've been married for more than 50 years. That's right, but it's been such a long time since I saw you, You think you could get rid of me that easily? My grandfather smiles fondly and winds his arms around my grandmother. His existence seems a touch less tremulous now, perhaps because of his close proximity to my grandmother. I can no longer see through him. No matter what happens to my body, we'll always be together in spirit. Do you really mean that? Of course. That's how I was able to come back. It was no easy feat, but I had a bit of a helping hand from the gods. That's a secret. I'd get in trouble if I told you. Alright, don't tell me. I know you men like keeping secrets. It makes you feel big and important. My grandfather laughs and shakes his head. You know me too well, Umeko. You're not particularly hard to read. And you always did like reading. My grandfather sighs. His breath ruffles the top of my grandmother's head, making a few dark strands of her hair dance. I miss you, Umeko. I miss you too, though you really are a fool. What do you mean? You haven't even commented on my appearance. I thought it'd go without saying, you look beautiful. You look even lovelier than I remember. And though you call me a fool, I do remember what you looked like during our first meeting quite well. I have an impeccable memory. Oh, Yukinari, is that true? Do you honestly recall the evening we first met? How could I forget? You were wearing a charming kimono patterned with flowers, much like the one you are wearing now, but a little less flashy, and a shawl, I think. I wasn't sure if I was going to wear the shawl. It wasn't such a cold night, and I thought it would be fine without it, but my mother insisted. She said it set off my outfit. I'm very glad you did decide to wear it. Me too. It's the one piece of advice I'm most thankful my mother gave me. I bet I looked rather dashing when I cut it for you, didn't I? Don't flatter yourself, old man. How harsh. From what I remember, you were quite taken with me. Didn't you say I looked like a prince? I was a fanciful young thing back then, full of wild ideas. That's what I liked about you the most. My grandmother rests her cheek against my grandfather's chest. He holds her close, wrapping his arms about her body, protectively shielding her from the bitter wind. Omeko, I don't have long left. I know. I came back because I wanted to tell you how much I love you, even now. But it seems you already know that. I never doubted your feelings, not for a second. Thank you. I knew I chose well when I decided to marry you. No other girl would compare. Even though I eat too many sweet dumplings? Even so, no matter how heavy you might be, Umeko, I'll always love you. Oh my gosh. You were much more charming when I first met you. You didn't tease me nearly as much. You were too busy talking about the stars. Oh goodness, did I? You did. You practically talked my ear off, but it was charming all the same. Forgive me, I couldn't help myself. I was so bowled over by your beauty. I wanted to impress you. But in the end, I'm afraid my rambling bored you half to death. You didn't bore me. You never have. The world always seemed more exciting when you were there with me. I could say the same thing to you. I'll always care for you, and I'll wait as long as it takes until we're reunited once more. I'm afraid that won't be very long at all. I've been thinking for the last few months, but my body feels dull and heavy when I wake up, and my fingers don't always bend the way I want them to. I think I might be joining you soon, perhaps in a few more years. Just don't hurry yourself to an early grave for my sake. I want you to live a long and happy life. I have lived a long and happy life. That's because I could spend it with you. Oh, really? My grandfather chuckles under his breath. And you say I'm a charmer. I think you're better with words than I am. I have learned it from the best. I have been reading a lot more books lately. Then you should know what happens when you reach the last page of a fairy tale. If it's a grim fairy tale, death and despair usually. Don't be so maudlin. Think of something happier. What about Cinderella? I know. My grandmother smiles. She looks up at my grandfather, a good head taller than she is, with wistful eyes. Hesitantly, he's like completely he's completely not transparent. Now, he's solid. He looks solid. Hesitantly, her cheeks flushing pale with pink, she entwines her fingers with my grandfather's and presses a soft, gentle kiss against his mouth. Oh shit. It's almost midnight when my grandmother and I finally return back to her home. At least that's what the circular clock hanging in my grandmother's living room tells me. 30 minutes to 12 exactly. Well, probably not exactly, because the clock in my grandparents' house has always been either 5 minutes too fast or 5 minutes too slow, but it's a more or less reliable metric in our daily lives. The precise time isn't too important. It's not like we're baking a cake or mixing dangerous chemicals in a lab experiment. I don't study chemistry like Rio. I'm a law student through and through. Gosh, my feet are killing me. My grandmother sighs as she sits down at the kotatsu, her wooden sandals removed in the entrance hall. I haven't walked that much in years. We did spend a lot of time shopping earlier, and there were all those stairs. You were right, those stairs were a menace. They nearly killed me. She isn't exaggerating either. When my grandmother and I were descending the 76 stone steps after our incredible otherworldly encounter, she lost her footing and slipped. She very nearly went hurtling down the remainder of those stone steps to meet her maker, but I was able to reach out and grab her in time. I would have met... what a horrible ending that would have been. Jesus. I would have met Yukinari much sooner than either of us expected if that had happened. You saved me, dear. Don't mention it. I tried to sound as casual and offhand, but in truth, my grandmother's tumble scared me half to death. Yeah, of course. My heart started to thump so hard I thought it was going to burst out of my chest, like that famous scene from Alien. There's really no need to bring up Alien right now. Oh God, Jesus Christ. You see what I'm talking about? We're getting sidetracked? I stole that DVD from my dad's collection when I was a kid, and forced Otoko to watch it with me in the living room late one night. Okay, now you're gonna talk about Otoko? She was 8. Okay, I was 10. Okay, we're here now. We're in the story now. It scared both of us, and I think Otoko held a grudge against me ever since for subjecting her to something so terrifying. Now that I think of it, Otoko has a lot of reasons to dislike me. Trapping her inside the futon cupboard was only the tip of the iceberg. My younger sister might hate me, but I think I've begun to repair my relationship with my grandmother. I'd like to believe I understand her a bit more than I did before. Oh, you are my savior. I was supposed to stop here, but I got distracted. We'll stop after the next one, I guess. Savior. Yes, a noble prince. I hardly think so. I mean, who let their own grandmother plummet to her doom? I wouldn't have minded if it were my grandmother. Damn, that's cool. You didn't like her? She was even stricter than my own mother, if you can imagine that. Not that you've ever met your great-grandmother, let alone your great-great-grandmother. What was your grandma like? She wasn't much like me. She was so stern, and she was always telling me off about my manners. She said I spoke without thinking and I didn't respect my elders enough. She didn't like my handwriting either. What's wrong with your handwriting? While I find my grandmother's handwriting a little wispy, the characters so thin, they almost seem to be running off the paper. It's not unreadable. Otoko's writing is more indecipherable. Her characters are very round and curvy, and she likes to decorate her writing with little stars and hearts. Stop getting distracted and talking about your sister. Jesus Christ. She said the way I held the pen... I just want to get through this damn scene so I can take a break. She said the way I held the pen was all wrong, and hadn't I been brought up better? Then she'd shoot my mother a nasty glare. So yeah, I'm wondering where the game is going at this point. Like, I guess he has to like figure out. The grandmother will change back to her original age probably soon, and he'll go back and give her sister her present, and he'll start to create a new relationship with her, and then we'll get like a little epilogue, and that'll be the end of the game. I don't have the patience to do it all right now. At least that's what I'm expecting. I'm hoping the game will surprise me, and it'll turn out to something to be like a little bit longer and with like a more interesting and surprising story. But yeah, it's fine for what it is, I guess. It's kind of humorously overly worded. I don't know if the humor there is intentional, but it's something that I can laugh a bit at. Let's just keep going. I don't think she approved that I was being raised by a single parent, but it wasn't my mother's fault that father died when I was young. She did the best she could. My grandmother frowns, her fingers resting on the top of the kotatsu. I thought my mother could be strict, but my grandmother was far, far worse. She spoke softly and lectured my mother like she was a child. My mother got embarrassed, and she took it out on me. I don't think many people like their grandparents, or... I pause, suddenly feeling guilty. Maybe they think they're so different from them, they can't understand them. That might be right. The generational gap can be insurmountable sometimes. I never knew what you were on about. When you were talking about your pocket monsters or your dragon orbs. It was Dragon Ball, actually. The show was incredibly popular. Well, there you go. I had no idea. Still, I tried to make an effort. I don't want to be like my grandmother or my mother. I think you've been lovely to me this whole time. Really? My grandmother looks at me shrewdly. After all this time, I thought the only reason you put up with my company when you were younger was because your parents made you. Well, maybe that was true at first, but I got older. Things changed. I know, dear, I'm only teasing. You've been a great help to me. I can't thank you enough. No, I should be the one thanking you. Thanks for always being so patient with me, even though I was an annoying kid. It's quite alright. Everyone changes, and you were only little back then. You weren't to know. I guess. Maybe she's right. Maybe everyone does change. In that case, perhaps my relationship with my sister could change too. Right. I hope it does. We might be dissimilar in most aspects, from our looks to our interests. Jesus Christ, man. Just like, can we just end this damn scene? To our general attitudes, but we are related, and only a couple of years apart. I let a rift grow between us out of complacency. I thought things would never change, no matter what I did. I was wrong. Things always change, like tectonic plates shifting beneath the Earth's crust. Looking back on it, I wish I'd been a bit nicer to my grandmother when I was your age. She could be awfully cruel, but she had a hard life. Maybe she wasn't so bad deep down inside, but now I'll never get the chance. How old were you when she died? I must have been in my mid-20s. I remember being so shocked. I thought there was no way such an indomitable matron could ever pass away, but it happens to the best of us. She didn't go down without a fight, though. The doctor said she had a respiratory problem for years. They thought she'd die much, much earlier than she did. People can be pretty tenacious when their lives are on the line, I guess. You're right. My grandmother looked old and frail in her final days, but she still had such an unbelievable energy. She didn't want to die. Just like my husband. But you were able to meet him again. That's right, I met him again. I swallow. What should I say? I don't want to say I hope you'll meet him again soon, because there's no way such a reunion could occur under favorable circumstances, but the thought of my grandmother living the rest of her life in this deserted village with a dwindling population is depressing. Oh, don't worry about me. I'll be fine. You will? Yes. Slipping on those steps gave me some perspective. I do miss my husband, but I don't want to go just yet. My eyes might not be working the way they used to, and sometimes it hurts to get up in the morning, but I have a lot left I want to do. Like what? Like spend more time with you, for one. You need to tell me about all the exciting things you've been doing in Tokyo. I'd love to hear all about your stories. And you could brew me some tea while we talk. Exactly. Think it would be wonderful. Me too. You're too excited about the tea, man. I return her smile with one of my own. For once, I'm not trying to be polite. I really do mean what I'm saying. Oh my god. From the bottom of my heart. It would be wonderful. I feel so content, sitting here in this cozy living room with my grandmother. I wouldn't mind if this moment lasted forever. But time stops for no man or woman. It keeps ticking. It's 15 minutes to midnight now, according to the clock on the wall. But perhaps it was actually 20 minutes to midnight. Or 10. I'm not sure. Well, I'd love to talk longer, but... My grandmother stifles a yawn with the palm of her hand. I should be going to bed. I'm not used to staying up so late. You wouldn't want to go to bed you wouldn't want to go without your beauty sleep. Quite. I've had plenty of excitement for one day, I think. You met your husband again? And you had a near-death experience. Not many women your age can say that. It sounds like something from a story, but it really happened. I hope so. Part of me still wonders whether it was all a dream. If it was, it must have been the most perfect dream anybody has ever had. December 31st, Sunday, a winter's dream. Okay. Alright, I'm definitely stopping here, I think. The next day arrives. Shit, I want to keep going. I just feel like I'm so close to the end. Might be nice to just finish it at this point. Alright, let's just go a little further. Next day arrives, and I wake with a yawn. The sunlight streams in through the window. I'm very curious about if the grandmother... I figure that she's probably going to be old again now, but I'm very curious. You never know, they might even kill her off. But I think they won't, from what they've been hinting at. Illuminating the top of my head, it's nice and warm. I think it snowed a little during the night, but the gentle sunlight of this brand new day has probably melted some of it. Birds twitter on the denuded branches. Denuded, it's denuded. Is that like mean the snow has fallen off of them? Denuded. Learning a lot of good words here. Denude is to strip of its covering, possessions or assets. Yeah. Laid bare by the winter, right? All the leaves are gone. Yep. And they're just bare and covered in snow. On denuded branches of the trees outside, they sound oddly loud in the relative silence of the morning, and I groan. Part of me wants to open the window and shoo the birds away, but another part of me thinks that would require too much of effort. Yeah, also it would make the house really cold. What if upon approaching the birds, they saw fit to reply in perfectly fluent Japanese? Fantastical though it sounds, I don't think I'd be too surprised if the birds spoke to me, not after all the other bizarre things that have happened lately. The world is stranger and more peculiar than I once let myself believe. It's filled with odd, improbable things. And most of us never even realize it. We're so swept up in the hustle and bustle of our daily lives, we fail to notice just how much magic there is in this world. And I'm not just talking about the spirits. There are other kinds of magic too, in the warmth of the sunshine, or the singing of the birds even in the winter, or the smell of my grandmother's cooking. Speaking of which, I rise to my feet. My toes curl against the tatami mats. They feel scratchy against my bare skin. It's not entirely pleasant. Then I throw on my clothes and make my way to the kitchen. Standing by the stove, stirring what seems to be a pot of miso soup. Here she comes. Oh, there she is. Ah, you! Perfect timing. Can you help me set this table? It's my grandmother. This time, she really does look like my grandmother. Yep, that's her. The pretty young girl I met yesterday is gone. The woman in the kitchen with her beige sweater and her choppy, weathered hands is a woman I know very well. Grandma Umeko. My father's mother. It's the woman who told me silly horror stories when I was a child. She seems younger to me. Maybe it's because I've gotten used to her now. The woman who ate slices of watermelon with me outside in the summer. The woman who cuddled up with me on her old sofa in front of her boxy television set to watch my favorite cartoon with me, though she didn't understand any of it. I used to hate visiting my grandmother when I was a kid. I never realized how much of an effort she made. I thought she was dreadfully dull and boring, and whenever she tried to share any of my interests, I silently resented her, sort of making me think about my own grandmother. When my dad asked me to give my grandmother a kiss before we went home, I turned my head sullenly and folded my arms across my chest. I thought being kissed by my grandmother was terribly uncool. I didn't want to catch germs. Plus, she smelled. But I don't think I'd mind that now. I'm a little older, and I'd like to think I'm more mature. And although we're grandmother and grandson with a large generational gap between us, I'd like to believe we can still be friends. I set the table while my grandmother stirs the miso soup. The two of us work together in companionable silence while the birds twitter outside. When the food is done, my grandmother carries the various plates and bowls to the table. Her food, like always, looks delicious. The miso soup is accompanied by bowls of brown rice, fresh pickles, and fried celery. What is celery? A Japanese vegetable or something? I've started to realize that like the dialogue, the wording in this game is quite intellectual. Like there's like a lot of big words that I wouldn't normally hear that I learned from playing this game, and also in this case it's a cultural word. Celery, a long, slender-bodied, edible marine fish with a elongated snout. I hope you like it. It looks amazing, but you didn't need to go through all this effort. They forgot to put the name of the character speaking here, which is confusing. But I wanted to. You deserved it, you. Oh man, I can't believe they blew this. Look at right at the end here. I don't know who's speaking. I have to like figure it out by intuition. After you helped me so much yesterday, really dragged you around the houses. I can't help but wonder if maybe if I quit the game and restarted it, would the names be popping up? Or maybe the game is implying that I don't need the names anymore. It's no big deal, really. Let's just check for just for our own edification. All right, I'm gonna restart it and see if Might be also interesting to see where it resumes me. Maybe it'll resume me right when the grandmother pops up. Because technically that's a new scene compared to his bedroom. I think there's a good chance it will. I just want to see if maybe quitting and restarting will fix the seeming glitch where we're not seeing the names of the characters anymore. So I think it's helpful for me, even though I guess it's not entirely necessary. There it is. Now the names are back. Getting caught up to where we were. Nope, they screwed up the names on one of the final scenes. How embarrassing. Let's keep going. Okay. Oh, let's not start this again. Eat your food. Eat. I'm more than happy to oblige. I fish a chunk of tofu out of my miso soup and pop it into my mouth, chewing slowly. My grandmother's miso soup tastes different to my mother's. It's a bit richer, slightly earthier. I think she uses a different kind of dashi, and more of it too. I never really liked the taste when I was a kid, but I've developed a newfound appreciation for it. This is the food my grandmother made for my grandfather when they were still together. She made it with careful consideration and it's filled with love. Yukinari always liked my miso soup. I learned how to make it something or other. I missed that line, but whatever. I can tell it tastes I paused, trying to search for the right word. Warm? Well, I should hope it's warm. It wouldn't taste very nice if it was stone cold. That isn't what I meant. I know what you meant, dear. I'm only teasing. Yes, you like doing that. I'm gonna put the volume down a little bit. Music started to get to me. It's kind of annoying. Forgive me, I'm an old woman. I need to amuse myself when I can. But does it have to come at my expense? Why not? Your reactions are rather charming. You're far more receptive to being teased than your father was. When I poke fun at him, he always lost his temper. He's good at dishing it out, but he can't really take it. The two of us continue to eat together. Our heads bowed, okay. Bathed in sunlight that spilled in through the windows. For a single shining day, my grandmother was a young girl again. Now she's an old woman. Wow, it was only one day. She's reverted back to the way she always used to be, like Cinderella. I have to wonder whether the enchantment faded away as she was lying in her bed as the clock struck midnight, her long dark hair slowly turning white, while her skin formed wrinkles like a pickled plum. Oh my god. It's a bit rude, that description. My grandmother doesn't look unhappy by the sudden transformation, however. Rather, she seems quite content, like one who has come to accept the innumerable inevitabilities of life. How does going back to your old body feel? Old being the operative word? Why do you throw that in? Oh, like I've returned home, I suppose. Home? That's right, I enjoyed being a pretty young girl again, but that isn't who I am. No, not really. It felt much like I was playing pretend. My body just doesn't feel like my own, if it's not riddled with a few aches and pains nowadays. Are you in a lot of pain? I'll make do. It's not so unbearable, and I've grown used to it now. Because it can't be helped. That's just how life is. Don't you regret it even a little? I do miss the way things were, but there's no point in mooning about it. The past isn't something that's meant to be dredged up into modern times. It can't keep up. You mean memories are more special if they remain memories? Exactly. I really wouldn't want to be young forever. Then I'd have to watch the people I care about growing old without me. That would be much too depressing. Like you saw your grandmother and your mother getting older? They seemed so strong and sure of themselves when I was a child, but all impressions are fleeting, I suppose. Time moves on. It does indeed. It might have stopped for me for a single day, and I'm glad for it. It meant I could meet Yukinari again, but we can't live in daydreams forever. I thought you loved reading. I do love reading. Oh, Jesus Christ. I gotta stop. I'm gonna... Definitely next scene I'm stopping, because this is killing me. it's like, get to the damn point. It's like these long conversations, they're killer. This story is too, I don't know the word, it's too sort of, I don't want to say masturbatory, but I feel like they have like a tendency to give like really long, somewhat, I suppose, realistic conversations, and the same thing with the thinking process, where with the narrator, you know, it really feels like you're in somebody's head that's sort of like, just like thinking whatever random thoughts, but like you're giving me too much. You just like a little more focus would have been nice to just you know get to the emotional crux of the story without overstaying your welcome. Anyways, it's killing me. Like I feel like I'm in the epilogue. The game's almost over, but I don't have the strength to finish right now. I just need to get to the next scene, and the next scene I'm definitely stopping. Alright. Fuck. I'm like kind of angry. I just want to rage quit right now, but like if I could save the game right now, I would do it. But unfortunately, the game doesn't let me save where I want to. It's another game flaw. Virtual novel games need that. If it's a damn virtual novel, let me put down my bookmark and stop reading. Anyway, let's keep going. I do love reading, and stories are filled with wonderful dreams. But most readers, even avid ones like myself, can make a distinction between real life and fantasy. I chew my food slowly, thoughtfully, and let the taste of my grandmother's miso soup spread across my tongue. As I swallow, I ponder. Will I be able to talk about the unerring march of time with such serenity when I'm my grandmother's age? Will I be able to accept my gradual decline and decay as a natural part of life? Or will I struggle against it? I think this is probably a stopping point. I'm stopping right here. Because I'm fucking done. I'm exhausted. Just get to the damn ending. Alright. So, that's all folks. See y'all next time. Will I try and fight the flow of fate, like a swimmer out at sea, attempting to combat a fierce tidal wave? Shut up.